Yeah, can someone say what was the last thing which we were discussing here?
Yeah, identifying those numbers using JavaScript.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay. So here, what we are trying to do now is grab these two fields using their IDs by using a method called as get element by ID. There are multiple things. We will talk about them later. So I'm just going to show you that when we click this add button, it's going to print the values inside these elements which we have gotten using the code. Yeah. So I'm going to type some random value here and I'm clicking add. Okay, it did something weird here. I will, okay, that is an issue which we have to fix. So what happens is we have this button inside this form, right? So usually when you have a form and there's a button inside it, it's called it is like a submitting action, and the assumption of the earlier day browsers were that when you submit a form that the page should refresh and it's going to redirect to a different page. So what it does is when I type in the value and when I press add, it's actually refreshing this page itself. When I click add, you can see that the values popped up here, but then it got cleared because the page is refreshed. So that's the default behavior. But to override that behavior, what we can do is there is a method inside a event called as prevent default. So that was the default behavior of refreshing that page. You can say prevent default. So this is a function. When I call it, now it's not going to refresh that page even when I click it. You can see that the page is not refreshed, values are still intact, and it is showing those two values in for me in the console. Let me type a different one here before and press add. You can see we have actually taken the two values from using these elements in JavaScript. So that's how you do it. And yeah, basically if this thing needs to work properly, I will need another element. Let's call it as the result element. So inside result, we will be having the result displayed. Let me type something here and show you. Okay, this is the result. Uh, Here, instead of we have two spans inside this. First span is just going to say result colon, and second span is going to say the value. Just showing you this is the value, and I'm going to add another ID here. So value. So now we can refer to this using uh, hash result, which is going to select this element. And if I type the forward slash, yeah, the greater than symbol, which is the angle bracket, which is referring that it is seeking for the child elements of this uh, div element. So we need this value. So for that, I can refer it as value because it also has ID property. So we previously saw that we were able to retrieve an element using its ID, right? Get element by ID. We also have an option called query selector where you can pass the query value element. So element may be referred as EL. document.query selector, and so put the same thing inside this. So here you cannot do that. Here you can only put a single value which it will search in the browser. But using query selector, you can add any complex selectors which we saw in CSS, and it will work. So we have this result element. I'm just going to print that result element and see if that is actually the span element which we are looking for. So I'm typing this, typing, saving it, and we can see that it is actually the span element which we have added in the browser. When I hover on it, you can see its values here. And I did not speak about this value property, right? So value, so this first name element, as I told you, it's an object. So value is the property which is inside this object. So it is another key inside that object. Let's say it is like this. So this object is the first name element, and inside this we will have this value and the number which we type. So that's how it's going to look like. But this value property is only specific to input elements. So it's not going to be a matter for regular buttons or a simple span tag. It's not a part of span tag. So here what we have for a span is the content. We have a text inside the span, right? We have this text inside the span which is called as which has 234. I can take the text by using dot text content. There's a property called text content inside every element. So this is common to all the elements. When I save it, you will be, so I'm going to type the values here, but yeah, it does not matter because I'm just going to show this value. When I press add, you'll be able to see it says 234. Let me remove these two for the simplicity sake. Add it, press add, and yeah, these two values are empty, and this value is actually 234, which is the text content of the span element. Okay, this is a span element, and we just grab the text inside that span. That's how it works. So now what we are trying to achieve here is, instead of this 234 some junk value, we are actually going to add that result of this computation inside this result. And this in the beginning. Okay, I'm removing this event for now. So for that, we have this function called as add two numbers. Now we will call add two numbers and pass in these two values. And now we have this result element. How we can add the value inside it is by using something called as inner text. So you have to type inner text is equal to add two numbers. So what it will do is it will replace the text inside this result value element with the value which we are giving now. So typing 5, 7, add it. Yeah, it says 57 and defined. I think the values are correct. We have it properly here. Okay, we have it on this. Should be comma. See, I've actually made a mistake. I've mentioned plus here. So what happened is when I mentioned plus, it's yeah, it sent. Okay, okay. There's one other thing which I want to show you here. Values that are contained inside this, we have actually printed that before, right? Let's type in again. added. Now you can see the color of this is actually white, which means that is still a string. Now what happened is when you try to add two strings, it is called as a concatenation, where it will join them together. That's what happened here. Let me show you in the browser itself. Basically, yeah, what we are doing here is, so this is what we are doing here. It just combines those two strings and makes it as a single string. So in our case, what we are trying to do is 23 plus 23. This is what is happening, and that's the result of 2323. And here we have just passed the first value, because instead of comma I added a plus, which is wrong. So we got only the number one value, and as we saw yesterday, uh, the number two is automatically assumed to be undefined. So now when you try to add anything with a string, so we have a string here. So we have a string, even though the values inside the string are number, it doesn't matter. When you enclose it in a string, it is a string. Whatever you try to add with it, even if it is a number, it's going to combine that and make it as a string itself. So that is the preference given to strings. So in same way, what it did is it actually took that undefined and combined it with the value which we got by adding these two. So which is 23 plus 23, which resulted in 3 plus 23, which is resulted in a concatenated value, which is 23. And after that, we have just added a undefined. This is actually the result that we got here. The problem, I think you can see, this value is string, but it should be a number. So, and also we just passed the first argument. We did not pass the second argument. So instead of, I'm removing that plus and passing comma, now you will be able to see at least without undefined. When I add it, now it's coming up without undefined, but still we are not getting the result which we want. For that, we will need to do something called as typecasting. So now the value is of type string, but we have to convert it into a number. For that, we have a function called as parse int. Okay, so this parse int, you can see when I hover on it, it says this is a string, and we also have something called as a radix. I'm not sure if you know what radix means. Yeah, you obviously know what it is, but I'm not sure if you know this term. Uh, it's just the representation of the powers that you like, the decimals, octal, hexadecimal, and also the binaries. So those are the things that you can parse from a string and convert it into a value which you prefer. So in our case, we are just trying to convert it into a decimal, so which is going to have 10, but it's not mandatory. So you can see we have two values here. First one is a string, which is of type string, and second we have a radix which is of type number, but we can see there is a comma. So this is a representation to say that this value is not mandatory, but it is actually preferred to add this value wherever you have this parse, just so that it does not behave weirdly. So yeah, uh, so we are passing the string which we got from that element, from those element, and you will be able to see when I log this element, I'm typing 5 and press add. We still haven't done the proper validation yet, but now you can see these two values which are printed from these two lines are still string, and this value is in violet because it is now converted into a number of type number of value 5. So now we have gotten what we want here. I'm just going to take this, and instead of number one, I'm just putting, yeah, pass int of number one, and same here. typing parse int of number 2. Now what happens is both of these values are parsed into numbers, and then now if we do the same thing, n and 20, add it, now we will be able to see that we are getting the proper result. That is because we have converted the numbers into, sorry, the strings into numbers and then adding them, so which makes it as 10 plus 20, not concatenation of 10 and 20 which were strings before. So that's how you do a basic implementation using JS. We have added a on click event. It should be on click equal to, inside double quotes we will be referring to this function. So this name should be same as the one that we have written here. If I change this name, yeah, when I click it, it's going to throw an error. Yeah, okay, it's actually throwing an error and refreshing it. Yeah, that's why I'm not able to show you that now. So yeah, I'm just going to change the name back to the proper one. Yeah, it's getting, we are getting the correct value here. So that's how you will combine HTML and JavaScript to bring out more functionalities into the web. So I think you understand it, right? It's we are of time. The task for you people, for your people will be, it's the same thing. Just do the same thing, but I need the results to contain four different values, which is just multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. It's basically like a calculator, but only with two values. You just need to have a first a number a and b, which you will be adding, subtracting, and you will find the product of it, and also a division. That would be the task for you for the next week. Yeah, that is all for today. If you have any questions, you can ask. We will wind it up in 5 minutes.
Buttons should be side by side or it can be in a different file.
Side by side in the sense, I'm not able to understand it.
Like after add, there should be subtraction or there should be multiplication.
No. It's like perform. Let's say just keep it as perform arithmetic. I keep it as like this. Common button. It's up to you. You can, if you need separate buttons, you can have it. That's up to you. It's not a problem. So, but yeah, the result should be in different elements. Here I have it in a single. Uh, here I have only single element, right? But it should be under different elements. So every kind of operation should have its own element. Yeah, and also add some style to it. Here I haven't added any yet because we are only focusing on JS. You can add style to these elements to look a little better. Yeah, anyone else? Any questions? We have 3 more minutes. So if you have any questions, you can ask. Even if it's from the previous sessions, you can ask them. That's not a problem.
Yeah,
We
with
are
no questions, we can wind up.
okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that. If someone has any question, you can ping in chat. But yeah, so sometimes it